Hi, I'm Pam Bergstrom. I'm the forester with the Nebraska Forest Service through the University of Nebraska at Lincoln, located at the O'Neill Field Office. Today I'm going to be talking to you about natural resource careers, and there's many of them to choose from. Today I might be a little biased about forestry, but that's because that's what I went into. But there's other degrees too: natural resource specialist, wildlife biologist, an ichthyologist, or someone who works with fish. How about an ornithologist, someone who works with birds? And there's a lot more to there too. So today I want to talk to you about a typical day, and I should point out that there is no typical day for me. Every day is unique and kind of goes with the flow, and you have to be able to go with the flow. If something changes, you have to bend with the wind, in a sense. So let's talk about one typical day. For instance, let's talk about a day where I'm out in the field. I work with landowners, so I work a lot with going out and meeting with them. My day typically starts between 7 and 7:30 in the morning when I get to the office. From there, I gather my stuff that I put together the night before with files and folders for me and the landowner, and then I head off. My trip can start from anywhere from 45 minutes out to 2.5 hours away. So I go meet with the landowner, and since this landowner decided that he wanted to do a fuels reduction or forest management, my time with him might take anywhere from 2 hours to the whole day. But in this instance, let's say it just took 2 or 3 hours. Then I'm off to the next landowner, and this could be a sick tree for a community in northeast Nebraska that I have to look at. Once I'm done looking there, I continue on my way to my last landowner. And let's say this landowner wants to do a windbreak or a windbreak renovation. This would take about anywhere from half an hour to basically 3 hours, depending on how much in depth we go into and how complex the windbreak is. Now let's talk about another typical day for me. That's the office day. Because with this position, you will find that you will have to do a lot of paperwork, reporting monthly, daily, and even yearly. So my day begins usually between 7:30 and 8 o'clock in the office, and I start with paperwork, doing forest management plans or doing other natural resource paperwork. Then usually about noon I take a break with lunch, but I also get on with some Zoom meetings to talk with other members of my staff. Then in the afternoon, it's not just paperwork, it's also taking part in workshops, online workshops, or taking in a walk around campus to see what's going on. So those are two basic typical days for me, and they can vary from day to day very greatly. So what about education? For my example, I went to school for 5 years. I went to 4 years as a forester, and my last year I spent it as an agroforester. So I have the forestry components, but I went above and beyond and got a agroforestry endorsement. You can do the same too. You can actually mix and match majors now, and minors are actually encouraged. Now, if you're looking for a school, you can look at a 2-year school with the hopes of going into a 4-year degree. A lot of working in natural resource professionals today don't have 2-year degrees. They have 4 years or masters. So I would suggest that if you're not quite sure where you want to start out at a community college, but make sure that those credits will transfer to your 4-year college. Next, when you go to your 4-year college, think about what you want to do. For instance, if you want to work with pheasants, then you should go to South Dakota State University. And you should also look for schools that take in-state tuition for out-of-state students. That was the case in my part. I went to the University of Missouri at Columbia, but I had in-state tuition because I was part of a neighboring state that did not have a forestry school. Looking for a school that meets your characteristics is important, but you also have to think about a budget, because college is not cheap. I know, I'm going back for my master's right now, and it's costing me a little more than I thought. So what about training? Training happens every day in a way. I learn something new every day, but every year I go to a national convention for the Society of American Foresters, or I try to. And from there I get trained on the newest equipment, the newest management plans, and I get informed about the insect and disease issues that we are seeing not just in Nebraska, but all across the United States. Now, if you're looking into this thinking positively about natural resource for a profession, there's some characteristics you have to have. Number one, you have to be able to work outdoors. Today's a rather nice day, but that's not always the case. You have to work in 110 degree weather to negative 20 degree weather. And yes, there are cases where you can't work at all, but you have to be able to go with the flow, and you have to be able to put on an extra layer when you go out in the winter. And you also have to be willing to work during the snow and the rain. Another characteristic that you should have is public speaking and communications. And I'm going to stress this a few times. Communications is vital for natural resource specialists. I communicate with landowners, with other professionals, and also with communities. But I also communicate with people who don't have a background in natural resources or have no idea what Nebraska really truly is for natural resources. So I have to inform them about what we do have in Nebraska. Other characteristics should include working well with others. I don't work just with foresters and landowners. I work with communities, I work with wildlife biologists, I also work with doctors. It's not uncommon during the summer for me to get a phone call for a doctor saying that a child has swallowed a bug or else a berry. They want me to distinguish if the berry is poisonous and if it will be okay for the child to digest. So you'll have to work with others outside of your area. So what are some advantages and disadvantages in natural resource? One of the big advantages that we're seeing right now is there's going to be a large increase in the number of people who are retiring. In the next decade, probably about 50% of the staffing right now will retire. This is a good opportunity for young people to get involved and get encouraged to go into natural resources. The other advantage is this is a great time for technology. We get new technology all the time, and it's fun to play with new gadgets and gizmos. But that brings me into disadvantages and the fact that sometimes your organization may not be able to afford the new gadgets and gizmos that you want. Another disadvantage is budgets. Budgets are tight right now, all across the board. For instance, in my position, I'm a forester. I'm a forester trained in agroforestry and also in rural forestry. But I'm not trained in community forestry. But I'm required to do community forestry or urban forestry stuff. You'll find that all across the board. What used to be 4 positions is now down to 1 or 2 people in that position. So you have to be able to learn and to adjust to your environment. And when you are asked to do something, take it on willingly and learn as much as you can. Now, this may sound overwhelming and you may be thinking, but I want to do this and not do that. Well, that's what I thought too. But actually what you'll find is when you get new things or new stuff put on you, you might find that you enjoy it, not even more than you thought you would. So what about salary? Well, that's a good question. So the starting salary for a natural resources specialist in the state of Nebraska varies depending on your education, if you have a master's versus a bachelorette, and also how many years of experience you have. So if you're right out of college from a 4-year school, you're probably looking at anywhere from $28,000 to $36,000, depending on what your responsibilities are and what's being asked of you. So you may be wondering, what about advancement? Advancement doesn't just come because you've been there so many years. You have to go back to school in some cases. That's where I'm at. I'm going back for my master's, as I mentioned before. But I'm also taking classes to become certified in different other things, such as a certified forester, and also becoming a certified agronomist or a certified pest or chemical sprayer. So there's other things that you have to look at, and don't be afraid to take some things on without letting others know. So let's talk about what you have to take for high school classes. I know you guys are sophomores and you're probably thinking that junior and senior year will be here before you know it. So what classes should you sign up for? For natural resources, you're going to do a lot in the science and maths. You're going to do everything from chemistry to advanced biology to even botany or the study of plants. For math, you're going to take trigonometry, advanced calculus, and probably geometry too. So what about other classes? Those can't be the only ones that are required. Not true. So you're going to be asked to do a lot with communications, as I mentioned before. So it's best to take an oral communication class or speech class, and also to take a written communication class. Also, it may not be a bad idea to take journalism. Why? because every month I write an article for a local newspaper out of Atkinson, Nebraska. And I have to write in a journalism form. I'm used to writing in a scientific form, so then going to a journalism format is a little different. So think about taking a journalism course. And also, if FFA is included in your school, think about taking an FFA course in natural resources. And also think about joining FFA, because there are natural resource curriculums there that you can get awards for that could even lead to scholarships, because scholarships help pay for college. So what are some volunteer or activities you can get involved in? As soon as you figure out what you want to go into, say if you go into forestry, I would highly encourage you to join the Society of American Foresters. If you decide to go into wildlife biology, then I would definitely suggest the Wildlife Society. Google natural resource professional groups or organizations, and you'll find several more, because there's an ecology and ornithology group, and the list goes on and on. So once you're involved with these groups, you can actually start to network. A network is something that you're going to hear a lot today probably. So network is basically where you get involved with your organization and you meet others who are into the same field as you. This will help open the way for your first job and possibly your internship. Or I should say your internship and possibly your first job. So once you get your foot into these organizations, you can volunteer for different communities or different outreach programs. And also, you get your name out there, so when people see your resume come across their desk, they know who you are. And that brings me to my next point, job shadow. Job shadowing is very important. You still may not be for sure what you want to do or what you want to major in college. Job shadow as much as you can. And don't just go with one or two professionals. Go even farther and go up to 5 people and see what they do. Because you'll find that every person does their job a little bit differently. 2 people can have the same job, but they'll attack it in different ways. And that makes you think of how you want to attack it one day when you become a professional. Intern. Internships are diabolical. You need to do them. Do them between your freshman and sophomore year, and possibly again between your sophomore and junior. That's what I did. And I got a great outcome out of it. Because not only did I get credit for it, I got paid for it. And also, I've met some people who are still lifelong friends. So what about special advice or something to leave you with? The best thing I can give you is you need to do public speaking. You need to learn how to do public speaking. You also need how to do writing scientific journals and writing for the common person. And job shadow and also intern. It's never too early to intern. Don't let anyone tell you you have to be an upperclassman to intern. That is not true. And if you do intern, try to find out if you can get credit for it, but also try to find out if you can get paid for it. That makes it a whole lot easier. So about once or twice a month I get called and I get asked the question, how old is my tree? And you may think that we can just take the diameter of the tree, put it into a formula, and presto changeo, it comes out that this tree is 37 years old. Doesn't work that way, because there is no algorithm to do that yet, because there's too many factors that go into it. So with this is called an increment bore. And what I do is I put it together like so, and I stand about, and I start to drill in about 4.5 feet above the ground. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to hit the center of the tree, which doesn't always happen. But it gives me an idea of how old the tree is, because in a minute, I'll take a sample. I get a sample. What I do is I will smooth it out. And I'll put a dye on it. And then I can see the rings. Truth be told, trees put out 2 rings for every year that they grow. So I will count the 2 rings as 1 and count how many rings are on this tree. pretty nifty, and it's been around for a long time.